I would like to talk with you about Web3 launches. It's the topic that everybody is interested in because it's about money, and everybody needs money for something, for research, for their living, for pushing the boundaries of science. And so the goal here is to make sure that you kind of get a landscape of what is the stuff that the Web3 ecosystem is made of, and that is basically how do launches work, how do launches have worked in the past, how do they work now usually, and what do we see in the space and how it is evolving. Just a quick check, how is it going with the presentation? Okay, 1 minute. Funny side note, I usually call myself C3PO, like the Star Wars Golden Man, because as a chief product officer, you basically need to speak 1,000 languages, similar like the golden tinfoil man. Because at the end, you need to speak to users, you need to speak to the founders here, you need to speak to patients, to investors, you need to speak the language of designers and of tech people. And so also the presentation that you will be seeing now is from the perspective of a lot of different people. So from investors, especially in the retail space, but also from the founders that we've been leading through the experience of actually launching a token on chain. All right, let's get started. Exploring the landscape. I guess this is the thing. All right, let's start with a history lesson. A lot of people might have been with us in the Web3 space for a while now, but I think it's very helpful to actually get us an understanding of the process that has unfolded. Early on with Ethereum launching and a lot of other chains, what we saw is a time of the big ICOs. People might remember EOS doing a raise over 1 year with like $4 billion US. Everything was like crazy numbers, crazy hype around blockchain tech. We saw blockchains being promised to use everywhere basically. And so the hype really led to these insane launches without any product being delivered at that point and just huge promises. Wherever there's money, you immediately see the investors come in, the VCs. They're like, hey, cool, here's music playing, so we need to get in on this. And so kind of the new VC-dominated era started, where we saw a lot of pre-seed rounds, seed rounds, valuations kicking up extremely high, and then the name of the game was usually, okay, you got to launch on a centralized exchange. And so these like pre-seed rounds often went to a valuation of 500 million, and then suddenly, boom, centralized exchange listing 2-3 billion. And from there, the unfortunate reality for everybody in retail that was interested in these tokens, often they were down only. So they invested then in the centralized exchanges, and they kind of became the expert liquidity of the investors that slowly had their tokens vested, and were basically selling into the market because they are now a liquid token. This is not to throw shade on the venture capitalists. Obviously, they were like trying to make most out of this market dynamic, but it really left kind of the small guy, the retail investor, kind of disillusioned with crypto again. And that's how really the new area, the retail micro-raise return story kind of unfolded, like Return of the Jedi. People started to invest into a lot smaller projects. That's where also launchpads like Pump.Fun, which were focusing on memes, but you can replicate the whole thing also in other areas, were actually unfolding. And we see these micro raises where there was a lot of price discovered by market demand, and everybody with their $600 or less could invest and actually become a token holder. And this was really also fueled, and we'll see this in a second, by the development and launch of these new blockchains, which were really fast, which were allowing like low fee trading, and therefore anybody to get in on the fun. All right. What are typical fundraise models? Those are like the standardization that we have now seen in the market. There's like fixed price sales. There's usually kind of an auction or a bonding curve. The difference is pretty clear. Fixed price sales, everybody gets the same price. Auction, everybody apes in, and the price is being set over a period of time. And then the bonding curve is just as more tokens are being sold, the price increases programmatically. And for each of them, you have different platforms that made them quite famous. Gnosis Auction, Gnosis as one of the leaders in the ecosystem, we'll actually have tomorrow also the co-founder of Gnosis joining us here on a panel. They've built a lot of infrastructure that have like stand the test of time, and Gnosis Auctions were used over 560 auctions or so in this space, and they actually raised a lot of funds also for DAOs. Most of our DAOs in Bio used the Gnosis Auction to actually get off the ground in the time between 2021 and 2024. All right, So launchpads came around because they now saw, these things need to be structured, needs to be standardized, and why actually have a launchpad? And the first thing is that it democratizes the fundraise for the project, team, and communities, because there's like one gate where users can come back to see what's new on the market and what they might be interested in. And then it also gives early access opportunities for investors, specifically retail investors. That's where we often like to speak about the degens, like aping in early. But to be honest, it's not just people that are like looking for the newest hot shit. It's often also people who are just really interested in the underlying projects that are being raised. And we're going to get to some of these launchpads in a second. Often these things were no-code, so anybody who was having a project could actually launch their own token with that, and low barrier compared to grants and VCs, especially grants. All the researchers know, high barrier to get actually some funding in, and VCs, long sales cycles to actually get funds as well. Now, a launchpad at the end is really just a marketplace. So you have the sellers of the token, those are projects, founders, communities, and at the other side you have the buyer, which are often retail investors, supporters, speculators, but also DAO community members that now actually got the chance to also own part of what they're supporting. And this is kind of like a matchmaking platform. So that's why these different models have been explored, such as auctions, such as bonding curves to kind of bootstrap first communities. And kind of clear winners are crystallizing themselves out here. And at the end, the incentives are quite aligned here. Buyers seek upside and participation in an early project. They try to be in something when it's just a grassroots movement. And the sellers, they obviously want to raise funds, build a community, and get also this knowledge of these people into their project. And here's something that I'm going to get back to in a bit as well, and why we're so excited about all these DAOs that are doing vertical integration of pharma and are actually pushing projects where they are patients that join the Discord are the ones that they're servicing. They're really seeing themselves as a service provider to them, is because you're creating actually these movements where anybody becomes a shareholder, anybody becomes a contributor, anybody becomes also a scientist. And this is like really lived citizen science, and that's why we believe like launchpads that we're going to present now are the future of this trend. All right, quick roundup here, just summarizing old models were very large raises usually, one-off raises where there's not like huge amounts of traction already shown, often fixed price sales or auctions. On the right side you see 2017 when kind of the ICO craze was kicking into overgear, and we had 1.2 billion raised in ICOs, and then EOS came, I think started in 2017, ended in 2018, and suddenly did this like insane 4 billion raise, and to be honest, I still don't know what they're doing. So now the new models came around, L2s, Solana, very small raises, usually just actually to bootstrap a liquidity pool, and they often did fixed price sales or bonding curves directly. And everybody's wondering, like, how does that raise any money if there's no money coming out of it? It can only work for meme coins, right? And the truth that I'm gonna like share with you here is no, it actually can work for a lot of different projects as long as they are able to get people excited about it, create a narrative and create traction, create attention for their project. So these faster chains created a new approach to fundraising, and that basically means through high frequency trading, you actually get a lot of volume on secondary markets. When people were trading on Ethereum, they were waiting for their transaction to end and enter the blockchain, and they often, I don't know, in 2018 or 2019 even paid $50 just for pushing a transaction. So completely unsustainable to join any market or even have an efficient trading market. And now we see actually with these fast blockchains, Solana, L2s like Base, algorithms are trading insanely fast. And with that, we see insane volumes on these blockchains, like millions and millions of volumes being traded. And the great thing is with decentralized protocols, DeFi protocols, DEXs, everybody who becomes a liquidity provider now becomes someone who is actually earning fees on these trades. And that is what everybody here is optimizing in these new approaches, is having a big liquidity pool, so that at the end, these fees are actually funding the research project and funding the project on its own. So that's why basically you see these meme coins that are launching at a very, very tiny valuation, put most of their supply in the liquidity pool rocks up to like 10 million valuation. The liquidity pool has now a position of 2-3 million and it earns 1% on that. And so if you have a lot of volume through this, you easily get, and we'll see this in a sec, at a case study, to like 50K to 150K in fees being generated per month. And so large token supplies and pools now you basically lead to this, that the teams actually still have these tokens, and these tokens are earning them a certain fee on the market. All right. This also aligns actually communities with the founding team, because the founding team now actually needs to be in public, needs to work to create attention, needs to make sure that they're pushing forward and communicating well. Science is also a lot about science communication, especially if you're raising in DeSci. And if they continuously do this, they will create the attention and therefore also the volume on their pairs, and with that also the fees that keep them running. So this is like a stark contrast to past raises that we have seen, and that we think are not working well for these founders, but also their communities, is if they raise very big rounds and then they go on to lock themselves up in a lab and disappear for years, and now use Web3 usually just for acquiring funds and not necessarily for actually building a community around their respective project. All right. There's a whole bunch of launchpads that created around this theme. Pumped Out Fund for memes, Dowsed Fund for usually funds, like DAOs that focus around like funding DeSci protocols. Belief app is a mobile app where you can invest in apps and games. Virtuals for AI agents, Create a Bit for AI agents. On the right side, you see just some of the projects on virtuals that have, for example, you see them there, the fully diluted valuation ranging from 10 million to 76 million with the total value locked. This is what is in the liquidity pool, and then next to that, the fees can be checked on Uniswap, and we'll get to that in a sec. And these projects, like they're obviously already quite large in their volume and in their market cap, but the same thing can be achieved with a lot smaller starting market caps around 10 to 30 million, or even like go down to 5 million, as long as the volume is running well. And whoever wants to look into these agents, there's also a lot of promises still behind them, similar like in DeSci. So we think that what is being done there with agents can be similarly just done in DeSci, create movements around these topics, and then slowly start delivering on these promises. Okay, let's look at a case study, Mamo. Mamo actually launched in May 2025, so it's pretty recent. And they're basically just a trading bot that helps you manage your investment. They launched through virtuals. They're now up to a valuation, I think, of, what was it, 80 million, which is, in my opinion, pretty high. But they started with a small raise of 85K through virtuals. That paired with around probably 20% of their token supply, had a liquidity pool of 160K. And now, as a token raise, you basically get to a liquidity pool that is sitting at a 1.6 million valuation. Down there is like the pairs that you can see and the APRs that these pools are basically getting. The APR being like changing, obviously, with the volume that is being traded through them, but that means like how much is being earned through this. And I think a good way to think about this is if you have a pool that is being traded around 100 to 300K in volume per month, you can, no, per day, you usually get around like 50 to 300K in fees out of it. And if you keep this going, you can actually fund a project over like 6 months and actually have funds secured for anything that you want to do in your research projects, because especially the IPTs that we are seeing usually want to raise between 150 to 300K. Now, obviously, these raises are a bit more risk on. They're not like we're doing this one-off big raise and then either it works or not. It's like you're getting onto a journey with a community that you're building, and now you're out in this market, and you obviously need to talk to people, you need to educate, you need to create content around this. It's a very different story, and so it's also very different founders that are attracted to this model. Okay. Yeah, so maybe just a couple of takeaways. Web3 launches have evolved. Investors don't like giving black checks anymore. It's just the EOS case. Please, if you know what they're doing, hit me up. There's just too many people that got burned, and they're looking for actual traction that can be showing that you have patience in your community, you have actually initial products, even if they're just tech products or AI agents that help you better understand your condition. It can be so many small things that can contribute to actually your community being bootstrapped. The fundraise needs need to be broken down into smaller chunks usually. If, for example, there needs to be a large study run, then usually preparing for that large study and collecting fees over time and then starting that study could be an option. And at the end, it's about delivering value and through that earning fees. Create products and communities and earn fees while you create that, rather than do a huge raise and then promise a big value in the future, and if it doesn't come around, there's the big disillusionment. All right. I think that's it. Oh yeah, just to summarize, continuous community building instead of big one-time launches, continuous fundraisers instead of one-off raises. This is also like our credo now at Bio. We're redesigning our whole Bio ecosystem, or our launchpad, which is one of the things that we're doing to service these needs more, and DAOs that want to start smaller and then build and grow as they prove that they're creating products and solutions for patients in their lives. And yeah, if you're interested to speak about this thing, I will be on the other side in the workshop space, in the cafe. Happy to jam a little bit more on this. If you have a project that you're considering about different fundraise mechanisms, what's the path to go to, happy to give feedback on these things. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for your attention.